Alright folks, let's talk about National Treasure for a moment here. So Disney Plus has come out with a new TV show based on the National Treasure universe, right? So let's talk about what is so great about the original movies, what I don't like about the show, and what I actually do like about this TV show. So let's dive in. So what I think is most appealing about the movies is that even though it's kind of unrealistic on the scale of it, right? That, you know, there's big grand conspiracies about hiding treasure at the highest levels of our nations. You know, it's kind of ridiculous, kind of absurd, right? But I think what is so appealing is just the feel of the show. So there's a lot of history that gets thrown at us in these movies. So like, you know, the original ones goes all the way back to the founding of our country, of the United States. You know, it takes us to the Liberty Bell, it takes us to Benjamin Franklin, to the Capitol, to the Library of Congress, to the Declaration of Independence, and it has that historical feel to it. And there is a lot of appeal to history, and I think that makes the movie, at least in that sense, appealing. But then there's like a patriotic feel to the whole thing because we're diving into the history of our nation. Even though it's weaving a fictitious story in there, there is still that feel to it. And on top of that, the actual mystery and, you know, the treasure hunt, I guess we can call it, is actually quite interesting. So the movies kind of focus in on the treasure hunt, and it goes from point A to point B, and it kind of just dives right into this treasure hunt. No matter, even though it's unrealistic of a hunt, you know, it keeps that interest. On top of that, it's just kind of a fun movie. It doesn't focus in on nonsense. It stays fun throughout the whole movie, both of them, for example. And because of that, you know, they may not be blockbusters, you know, they may not be a 5 out of 5 star movies, but they're at least appealing, right? They have a very high, what I would call a high rewatchability factor, because you can just watch this movie over and over and over again and still have fun every single time you watch it. And that, in a lot of ways, is the main appeal of the movies themselves. Because sometimes you just don't know what to watch, so why not put in a fun movie to watch that, yeah, okay, it may not be an all-star movie, but at least it's fun, you know, at least it's entertaining. At least you get some enjoyment out of it when you watch it. If you're liking this video so far, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy the watch. Now Disney, they have this streaming platform called Disney Plus that we all know about, right? But they have come out with a new TV show on there called National Treasure: Edge of History. And it's supposed to be based on the same universe as the National Treasure universe. And of course, since it's National Treasure, it circles around a treasure hunt. Let's talk about this for a minute, because that doesn't mean anything, right? Just because it's a treasure hunt doesn't mean it's national treasure. It doesn't mean it's super interesting, right? So their treasure hunt, rather than being focused on US history and have that patriotism, that symbolism to it, and that history to it, they focus in on this South American treasure with the Mayans, Incans, and Aztecs. And it goes absurdly unrealistic with it, because in real life, those old nations didn't really have a lot of interactions with each other, if any at all. Apparently there's a treasure involved with all three of those nations together. It's kind of goofy. And then when it's presented in the show, you don't really get a lot of depth to it. So you're not really given a lot of information about this treasure. You're just given it kind of superficially. So they have, the very first episode, they have a short little introduction to the treasure. It kind of gets very briefly introduced to the characters in the show, and then through the course of the show, they're just very slowly unraveling this thing. Somewhat there's clues to lead to more clues to lead to finding the treasure, but it's all kind of superficial. Like, there's not a lot of depth to it. There's not a lot of realism to it. It's just kind of bland when you get down to it. And then you get some absurdities to the treasure hunt, because one of the main clues comes from Elvis Presley, because apparently he's a part of the conspiracy to hide the treasure or whatnot. And so you actually have a clue from Elvis Presley himself, and it's just kind of, when I saw that on the show, I was like, really? That kind of was my thought. It was like, ugh, you know, if you really want to garner some appeal to the show, having cringe moments like that are really not what you want. Another thing I don't like about the show, kind of the overall feel of the show. So the movies focus in on the treasure hunt, right? And that was the feel of the show. It felt like a treasure hunt. The TV show kind of focuses in more on the relationships between each of the characters, which I suppose since it's a TV show, you kind of need that more than a movie. But the problem lies is that it takes away from it feeling like a show about a treasure hunt. It does. And it almost feels like you're watching one of those shows about teenagers and their social lives, and it's and it's very unappealing because it just feels like you're watching a show about a lot of teenage angst, which doesn't feel right, especially when the characters are supposedly all adults in their 20s. It just feels like I'm watching a show about 16-year-olds with their love lives, and it just feels really weird. And it doesn't feel like the kind of show that should be revolved around a treasure hunt. Now that's kind of what I don't like about the show. Now what do I actually do like about the show? So some of the characters are actually kind of entertaining. Some of the interactions kind of keeps you interested. It actually kind of funny in some scenes. And then the treasure hunt itself, while it doesn't have a lot of depth, I can see the appeal as you're going through it, because I watch an episode and I'm like, yeah, I can watch another episode. Why not, right? There is certainly some appeal there, some interest and some entertainment there. It's definitely not a bad show. It's not. It's at least to some degree entertaining. And I do like that. If you're watching a show, you would want it to be entertaining to some degree. And I will have to give it that. It is entertaining. I also like the fact that they bring back a character from the movie. So they bring Riley Poole in. If that's a spoiler, I'm sorry if I ruined the show for you by saying that. But they bring Riley Poole back into the show. And I do like that. It brings a little bit of nostalgia from the movies. And on top of that, he's a great character, great actor playing the character. And I think that is a plus. Now, do I think a show should stand on the actors from other parts of the franchise in order to keep it afloat? No. In some ways, I think that detracts from the show. It's just like I am a fan of the TV show Stargate, the Stargate universe. And Stargate Atlantis is the sequel to Stargate SG-1. And then when Stargate Atlantis came out, they started bringing in characters over the course of the show. They started bringing in characters from Stargate SG-1. And, in a lot of ways, they were only doing that just to continue interest in the show, because it wasn't gathering as much interest, as much popularity as Stargate SG-1 was. I have that feel that National Treasure is doing the same thing. They're trying to bring a character, a well-established, well-liked character into the show in order to gain a little bit more interest from people to the show. There are some pluses and minuses to that. I don't like the fact that they did that, but I also like the character. I like Riley Poole, so I like seeing more of the character in the show. So there are pluses and minuses. Overall, I would rate the show maybe about a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I kind of question the longevity of the show itself, because eventually you have to imagine they're going to find the treasure, right? This is not going to be a 5-season long series of them trying to find the same treasure. So I kind of question the longevity of it, because eventually they're going to find the treasure, and then how are you going to continue the show after that? Are they just going to start seeking out another treasure? It's very questionable. I have always stood by this belief that Disney just kind of sucks. They've done a lot of good. They have a lot of money, and so they're able to continue franchises that people love and people adore and that people would love to see more content in. But the reason why Disney kind of sucks is it just seems like they don't have a concept about why people like certain shows. They have all these franchises in their possession, and they just seem to ruin them. They really do. It just seems like they miss the point. They see these shows have popularity. They understand that they need to make more content for the people who want to see more. But instead of making more content that follows the same line of appeal that they already have, they change it because they don't seem to understand why the shows themselves were appealing in the first place. And so you end up getting this content that doesn't live up to the original source material. And Star Wars is probably the greatest example of that. You have this excellent universe with this amazing source material. Then Disney took over, started pumping out content, and it's just like they missed the point, right? They just completely missed why these shows were appealing in the first place. And I just kind of feel like they're doing it again with National Treasure. I just feel like they're missing the point. That National Treasure is appealing for a certain reason, because people like the intrigue of a treasure hunt. People like the history. People like the patriotic feel of the movies, I guess. People like how the movies were made and the flow of the movies, the entertainment value that provides. And now they have a TV show that just doesn't really hit any of those points. It doesn't have an intriguing treasure hunt, at least not yet. I mean, the show might get better, might end up fleshing out a better story, but it doesn't have the structure of it. The characters don't act the way that the precedent for the universe was set in the original movies, right? And they don't act that same way. They're more teenager-y, there's a lot more teenage angst involved. So you don't have that feel either. You don't have the history of it, because the history that they're using in the show is all completely made up. It's completely made up. The movies are grounded in reality. Yes, you have some added fluff added to it for the sake of the show, of the movies, but at least it's grounded in real world, real life history. But the TV show, it's not. It's all make-believe. It's all made up. It's not grounded in reality. And so it just loses so much appeal, and it just doesn't live up to the original source material. Now, am I going to keep watching the show? Yes, I will, because it is, at least, as I said, entertaining. Watching the show, I don't feel bored. I do question and critique certain aspects of it, but at least it's an entertaining show. And at the end of the day, that's the purpose of a TV show, is to be entertaining. It's kind of a letdown in the fact that we should have gotten some better content, because Disney kind of sucks, but I will keep watching. But let's discuss it, right? Drop some comments down below. What do you think the new TV show? What do you think is appealing about the old movies? And do you think that the TV show lives up to it? Let's discuss, drop some comments, and don't forget to subscribe.